Sawadee Khan, very good evening and welcome to our special edition of Thai PBS World as we're covering the protests in Bangkok. I'm Nad Bunak and you're also with Kun Tilip Nak Supop Blau and Kun Tep Chayok.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And now there are public gatherings taking place simultaneously at least 3 major locations in Bangkok, with smaller rallies taking shape in some other spots in the city. And the biggest of them all now is at Lat Phraw intersection where Vipavadi Yangsit Road meets Phonyo Tin Road. Now, as you can see, the crowd is quite sizable.
Yes.
And these people here have started arriving as early as 5 p.m. And now they are filling up the squares of the intersection.
Earlier today, there was an announcement from some of the fraction of, they don't call themselves car leaders anymore because they said anyone can be the leader, but I have to call them the protest organizer. Earlier this morning, they made an announcement on social media, said they're calling for everyone to come out together at 4 p.m., but they didn't specify any location yet. So it's a tactic, I assume, to avoid maybe the police officer to plan ahead.
Yeah.
But then later on, after they left us guessing where they will protest, later on they have informed all of the supporters to stand by at all of the BTS stations around 3 p.m. And as you're seeing right now, there is a bigger demonstration at Hayak Lat Phraw or Lat Phraw 5-way intersection, and this is probably one of the biggest protest rallies for today. And the other 2 locations are at King Taksin Monument at Wong Wen Yai, as well as the BTS Udom Suk Station,
which is Sukhumvit 103.
Yes.
And because of the protest today, BTS, MRT, as well as airport rail link services have been suspended for today.
And according to what our reporters have heard from some of the rally organizers, the rallies at the Lat Phraw and some other spots are supposed to continue until around 8 p.m. tonight. And the protester will go home and come back again to regroup. So this definitely fits the definition of flash mob,
Yes.
which is classified as a public gathering at which people make their voices heard or to publicize their plight and then disperse. And typically, this kind of flash mob is organized by means of the internet and or social media. So this morning, the so-called Rasadon group posted a message on the Facebook and urging people to regroup today. After, as we all know, that after the rally at the Pathumwan intersection last night was dispersed rather in a violent manner, with police using the high-pressure jets, to force the crowd to disperse. And look, and judging from the way that the protester at the Lat Phraw intersection dressed, it's quite clear that they are quite better prepared than yesterday. Hard hats have been distributed among some of the protesters, and most of them are wearing raincoats.
Right. So helmets, raincoats, as well as masks.
Yes.
So we can see that the protesters have been fully prepared compared to other days.
I have to say though, a lot of people in Thailand not used to see demonstration that come together for a couple hours and suddenly dispersed.
No.
Because usually in Thailand you will see them come out.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is what actually we've seen in many other countries though. Gather for a couple hours and disperse and come back again just to voice their concern and to show what they don't like and then just go their own way.
Okay. And to what is conspicuously absent at this moment at Lat Phraw rally and at some other spots is the presence of security forces. We haven't seen any police personnel or any security personnel yet.
But today is a National Police Day in Thailand,
Yes,
so
right.
maybe that has some kind of role or
They have
a
some ceremony
reason.
to mark the occasion.
Yeah.
Quite ironic that the police have to do their job. I mean, in confronting the crowd on this very auspicious day for them. Normally it's a very official function that they would hold.
And it looks like the protesters are moving to a different direction. I'm not sure exactly where they're moving at the moment.
Okay. And now let's go and take a look at some other locations where the rally are taking place now. As Kun Donyana has reported, there are people gathering at Wong Vien Yai on the Thonburi side of the city.
And you can see everybody prepare with the umbrella and the raincoat because the weather unit, actually for the meteorological department, forecast that there will be raining. It has been raining since the morning today, so everyone is well prepared.
No, but there are smaller gatherings at some other spots as well, besides at Lat Krao, Wong Vien Yai, or at the Udom Suk or Bang Na area. So we are waiting for reports about these smaller gatherings.
And earlier today, before there were 3 main protest sites,
Yeah.
This is at Wong Vien Yai, no,
right.
in Udom Suk. This is at Udom Suk, which is Sukhumvit 103. It's another big gathering place.
Yeah. And this spot is near the Bang Na intersection, which is the main highway leading to the eastern provinces. And as you can see that the crowd there is also quite sizable, despite the fact that the services of all the major public transports has been suspended, partially at least anyway, in anticipation of the crowds. But these protesters still manage to find a way to the destinations. We haven't really heard from any of the protest leaders yet as to what their plans for this evening are.
Earlier, we heard from Thattep when he was released on bail.
Yeah.
He said he is not going to show up today,
Thattep
citing
is one
some
of the-
health
yeah.
issue.
Thattep is one of the remaining key protest leaders. He was just released on bail after being taken into custody.
And right now, we're showing you a live feed from Wong Vien Yai, which is another main protest site for today. As we mentioned earlier, the 3 rally sites for today is Udom Suk, Wong Vien Yai, and the Lat Prao 5-way intersection. So these are the 3 main sites. But earlier today, many of the protesters gathered at all BTS stations prior to moving to the 3 main rally sites. And this is at Wong Vien Yai.
Wong Vien Yai is just across the river. And since earlier today, we have seen a lot of people. Now it looks like they are lining up, giving out some protection gear. They are well prepared. This one is from Lat Prao intersection. It's a lot of people, and they look well organized, actually.
I guess they are prepared in case there's another round of violence, just like yesterday.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that people are sharing their helmets as well as protective gear. And speaking of Lat Prao intersection, we don't see any protests at this area very often because usually the protest would be in the city center, whether it's Rat Pasong or Pathum Wan. But Ha Yak Lat Prao, we don't really see protests before.
There was a closure of Ha Yak Lat Prao during the yellow shirt
Yeah, that's
protest. They did many spots in Bangkok, and Ha Yak Lat Prao is one of the area that they close off. But yes, most of the time we don't see people gather here.
As you can see, the protesters are passing their helmets, certainly in anticipation of a possible arrival of the crowd control police. Of course, what happened last night was certainly a reminder to these protesters that they can be a target of a sudden crackdown by the authorities anytime. But so far, we still haven't seen any signs of security forces around the area yet. And this morning, in a press conference, the city police reaffirmed that they had to do their job in dispersing the crowd at Patumban intersection yesterday. And they insisted that the method they use, using crowd control police and the high pressure water jets, is something that was done in according with international standard of practice. Of course, their statement was to refute accusations by critics of the government that the disposal of the crowd last night was an excessive use of force against unarmed and peaceful demonstrators. And the police this morning confirmed that on the part of the police personnel, 5 people were injured, but
Yes.
the injuries were quite minor, and there was one injury on the part of the protester, also quite minor. So that's something that we can really take comfort from, that despite the scenes that appear to be quite violent at times, eventually there were only a small number of minor injuries. And let's pray that tonight there won't be a repeat of that.
The Erawan Center said there were 3 protesters that have to receive treatment in the hospital. And then there were a Japanese guy that happened to be the scene that also being admitted in the hospital as well, which is not in the Erawan Center database. So currently, overall, I can confirm that there are at least 5 people, 5 civilians that are receiving treatment in the hospital from the protest site last night.
And of
Not,
course,
not sure
yeah.
if all of them is protesters. Some of them we cannot verify yet what they were doing there, but yes, they were injured from the protest site.
No, it was quite clear that the protest organizers today tried to avoid detection by the authorities by using social media to mobilize the crowds. And they did so quite successfully, judging from the turnouts at all these, at least these 3 locations, right, Rajana?
Right.
The so-called United Front of Thammasat and demonstration, which represents students opposed to the Prayut government, now seems to have emerged as a main coordinator of today's rally after the so-called Khanak Rasadon Party stepped back. And it said, the Khanak Rasadon said in a statement this morning that Khanak Rasadon itself no longer exists because Khanak Rasadon represents, is a network of like-minded groups of activists, who got together and formed this network. And they said, Khanak Rasadon means People's Party,
Yes.
a group of people. But now they are calling themselves Rasadon, people, not Khanak Rasadon. That means practically the Khanak Rasadon, the organizers of the rallies are trying to suggest that from now on, everyone is the leader of the protest.
So if we can give you a recap of what the statement said this morning by the Rasadon group, the statement condemns the violent crackdown on the demonstrations last night that saw protesters being sprayed with high-pressure water jets and charged by crowd control police. They also said that the violence that occurred last night demonstrates that the government and the military have declared themselves the enemy of the people. And although the protest leaders have been arrested, but the protests so far have shown that the real leaders are the people. The statement also said that the Khanak Rasadon group no longer exists and there will only be Rasadon and everyone will be the leader. And another recap of the 3 key demands of the protesters that is led by the Rasadon group are the demanding of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha to resign, redrafting of the constitution, and the monarchy reform. And probably another one would be to show defiance against the state of emergency.
All right.
So beside in Bangkok 3 spots, there are actually gatherings in many provinces around the country, like พิษณุโลก ขอนแก่น ลำปาง อุบล เชียงราย สุรินทร์ สกลนคร Chiang Mai though, they say that they're not doing gathering today. That is a surprise actually. But there is gathering in พัทยา ร้อยเอ็ด หนองคาย เชียงราย ตรัง กาฬสินธุ์ นครสวรรค์ พะเยา นครปฐม So dozens of provinces have gathering mostly organized by university students.
That's good. But they are trying to send out the same message that they want to see drastic political changes. And of course, they all also share the same stand on the issue of the monarchy and then on the issue of wanting the Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha to resign. So we could say that the demonstrations, the rallies across the country have been rather spontaneous, even though coordinated through a network of the student activists. It's something certainly, I mean, the authorities or the people in power cannot actually ignore because the level of discontentment of young people is not limited to those in Bangkok, but also to young people across the country.
So we can see the power of the younger generation, whether it's Bangkok and elsewhere in Thailand, which has the same demands like we mentioned earlier, particularly demanding the Prime Minister to resign.
So we got the report from Thai PBS correspondent said that talking about the protest at Taksin intersection, that some of the protesters have walked to Wong Vien Yai area, and there are some people telling them to just go gather at Taksin intersection because they suspect there are police officers at Wong Vien Yai. But like we told you earlier that we have not seen a confirmed report of any police officers in any of the protest sites.
If you take notice from what you see on the screen, most of the protesters at the Lat Plau intersection now are wearing helmets. I mean, and helmets have been distributed among these protesters throughout the evening. Of course, I mean, as we mentioned earlier, that it's being done in anticipation of a possible crackdown. And now we have a feed from our reporter Kun Chatri at the Lat Plau intersection.
Yes, hi, Philip. Right now I am here at Lat Plau intersection, also known as Hayak Lat Plau. Right now, behind me there are a lot of protesters gathering along the streets. And just a moment ago, there is a little bit chaos right now. People are marching to that side, as you can see in the picture. Here, a lot of people just go there and gather. I don't know what happens now.
Look a little chaotic though.
Yeah.
It's a little bit chaos here.
Yes. We got a report from another Thai PBS correspondent said that the protester that doesn't have any protective gear were told to move to the center of the gathering.
Oh yes, on that side is under the bridge, which is the center of the intersection. Some people are marching to the under the bridge there, and they are trading verbal abuse to the government. As I can hear it from here.
Are you seeing there is still more people coming to join the
Yeah,
protest?
there are more and more people come here, but right now I cannot see any police officers here.
Okay.
All right.
How is the internet connection over there though?
I'm sorry?
How is the internet connection over there? Because they're using internet as a tool to communicate, right?
Yes. The internet here is not so good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so okay, Chatri, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much,
Okay.
Kun Chatri.
Thank you,
Okay,
Kun
as
Kechai, Kun Philip, for that.
And as Kun Chatri just reported, there is still a conspicuous absence of security people. Because with as many people as we see now gathering, so we should have expected the arrival of some security units, right? So that we don't know what happened yet. We still haven't heard any reaction from the authority as to how they will deal with the situation, or whether or not they have the intention to repeat the operation that they carried out last night when they cracked down on the crowd at the Patumban intersection. It was an ugly scene yesterday, of course.
Yes.
Right.
And of course, up until today, the use of the high pressure water jet mixed with the blue chemicals still continues to be a subject of heated debate, because a lot of people are quite concerned that the chemicals could be very harmful to the protester. So this morning, the police, in charge of the operation, tried to explain that the chemical was not as harmless as many people may have feared.
And
Not
if
as
we
many
all-
harmful as lots of people fear. And actually, from the press briefing, the police has not talked about any plan today. Usually they do. They're going to talk about how many people will be deployed, what roughly plan they have to deal with the protesters. But today they haven't said anything about the plan. They just keep talking about what happened yesterday, that is according to international standard, and they have warning and things like that. But no, they haven't talked about today.
Well, speaking of the blue liquid that was fired at the protesters yesterday, many of them complained of skin and eye irritations after being hit by these blue-colored water jets, and some immediately suspected they were hit with tear gas, which caused a lot of debate on the possible harms of this substance on social media as well as traditional media as well. And it was the first time that the dye was used in water jets by crowd control police against the street protesters. And like Kun Hapchai just said, the police said the chemical might cause skin irritations, which could be easily relieved if it has been washed with water. But the chemical is usually used to stop the protesters and force them to retreat. And if we all remember in the Hong Kong protest, this kind of chemical has already been used with the protesters. And this is the first time that Thailand has used this sort of chemical in the protests.
So other people said that this resembles what happened in Hong Kong, the blue water, the umbrella, and everything else, and happening so fast, and everybody quickly dispersed.
Yeah, the police try to emphasize what they believe that is the medical confirmation that the bright blue pigment is harmless, because it is basically designed to mark out protesters and help authorities track them down afterwards. But up to now, it's still unclear whether or not any of the protesters tainted with the chemicals have been taken into custody, because as the police officers this morning tried to explain.
Talking about the protests, actually a lot of foreign media have said that they feel that this protest has been largely peaceful most of the time. Look like they restrained and they try to keep everybody calm. But that's make a lot of people not happy when the protests, when the police were using water cannon yesterday. And actually, the Nikkei Asia Review has quoted an academic, associate professor Apichat at Thammasat University, said that the protesters might try many methods to challenge the declaration of state of emergency in order to show the international community that this government is not capable of governing the country anymore. So that is an interesting take.
The violent crackdown last night has drawn concerns and condemnation from both local and international organizations.
And one of them is Amnesty International, which described the dispersal of the protesters as a use of excessive force, which was unwarranted and in no way complied with the principles of legality, necessity, and proportionality, as the Thai authorities claim. The Amnesty International also explained that the use of water cannons and irritants not only poses serious risk of injury, the use of dye is indiscriminate and could lead to the arbitrary targeting and arrest of peaceful protesters, journalists, or simply local residents who were marked with the coloring. And the Amnesty International also urged Thai authorities to comply with their international obligations and facilitate the right to peaceful assembly.
So talking about the coverage from the media yesterday, there was a report that there are some cable TV channels that have been partially censored, like Voice TV station, BBC, the British public broadcaster, and also NHK Premium, the Japanese public broadcaster, that was interrupted while it was airing a segment on the Thai protests yesterday on Wednesday night's news show. So there's a lot of question from foreign media about the censorship in Thailand, but from Thai government, they haven't really been specific about that.
No, in fact, all the broadcasters have received a notice from the regulatory body, the National Broadcasting Commission, warning the media to be extra careful in reporting on what is going on, to avoid reporting on issues that could cause public disorder or panic. Of course, the wording is quite broad, so anything can be construed as falling into that category.
And talking about the foreign media, whether they're covering the protests or what happened in Thailand previously, these channels, particularly the BBC, has been no stranger to any sort of censorship on TV.
Yes.
And if we all remember previous incidents when if there's a presenter's intro started talking about Thailand, you would see some sort of TV interruption saying that program will resume shortly. And we can all assume that there's something going on in this report that requires a lot of censorship.
I have to say though, this news has been receiving attention from all over the world. If a lot of people know that Reuters, AFP, and AP has provided wire service to many news media in many countries, and they all have been reporting this live and very update. Like Reuters said that thousands of Thais again defy protest ban in Bangkok. So they are talking about today. They quote a 27-year-old office worker that said that what the police officer did was over the line, and they want to show the government that their power and that they cannot accept what happened. And AFP said that Thai protesters vowed to return to streets after Friday clashes, and they talk about free youth movement. That was the one that led most of the protests, that said, told everybody to be prepared both physically and mentally. Associated Press said that they talk about the monarchy. They said that a royal bubble bursts, and this has become a real crisis. And the mechanism for resolving the crisis, whether in terms of compromise or dialogue, don't seem to exist. This is actually in line with the same thing that the 62 communication academics in Thailand has issued a statement a couple of days ago, said that they suggest the government try to find platform for everyone that can voice their concern and come down to discuss the issues that have been ongoing in the country. So a lot of people asking the government actually should show a willingness to talk to the protesters.
So for those who have just tuned in, you're watching a special edition of Thai PBS World. We are giving you the latest update on the ongoing rallies which are taking place simultaneously at least 3 major locations in Bangkok. And as we have reported, smaller rallies are also forming on some other locations. And what you're seeing right now is the scene from the Lat Phrao intersection. You can see that the crowd there is quite sizable, and the protesters are much better prepared than they were yesterday. Many, or I would say that the majority of them seem to be wearing hard hats or helmets.
Yes.
And with raincoats and umbrellas. Of course, as we have been reporting, that there has been a conspicuous absence of security personnel, and that is an indication that the authorities may not have plans to move against the protester anytime soon.
Or maybe they have secret plan that we don't know.
That's right.
South China Morning Post make an interesting take on the protest. They said that the protesters in Thailand are taking on the monarchy because of the military. They said that the crackdown exposes the government and military's palpable fear that this year's anti-government protests are entering a dangerous new phase, and citizens are no longer decrying the military's domination of politics. They are also actively challenging the legitimacy of the monarchy.
And we got some latest updates here. The protest rally at Udom Suk has announced that they will stop rallying at the moment. But the rally at La Prao and other areas are still going on.
So as we have mentioned earlier, that the organizer at the rally at Wat Plau have told the crowd that they would try to end the rally at around 8 p.m. but urge people to come back again tomorrow. So we still have no clear idea as to what the next move until 8 p.m. for them will be. So this definitely fits the definition of flash mob, right? Because the flash mob is classified as a large public gathering at which people make their voices heard or publicize their plights before they just disperse.
And so far, the protests at both three main rally sites remain peaceful, which is a completely different scene of what we've been seeing yesterday with the violence and spraying that blue colored water. But for today, everything seems peaceful and it looks orderly, but however, there are no security forces around.
So reportedly, there are umbrellas being given out to the protesters, and some of them are heading to Chatuchak Park. And they are still giving out because they think it's gonna rain pretty soon. But like we can see, like Kunat said, that it's pretty peaceful, and it's the crowd is getting bigger than just 15-20 minutes ago.
And of course, legally speaking, these protesters are violating the state of emergency, which bans gathering of 5 people or more. In fact, this is a warning that has been given to the protesters throughout the day. But of course, the protesters do not seem to be deterred by the warning, or even felt hindered by what happened last night when there was a crackdown on the rally at the Patumban intersection.
And right now there is another pop-up gathering in Nonthaburi province. Seems like there will be a stage at Karai intersection pretty soon.
And just a moment ago, there was also a small rally on the campus of Rangkamphaeng University. And addressing the crowd, who are mostly students, Panupong Chatnok or Mai Rayong. As we all know that Mai Rayong or Panupong has been one of the key drivers of the series of anti-government protests. And Mai Rayong or Panupong is one of the few key leaders who are still at large, not being taken into police custody. And Panupong is a political science student of this university and has been quite active in confronting the Prajut government ever since the military coup d'etat back in 2014. And Panupong is being seen as one of the key leaders now taking charge of the anti-government movement.
So there is a report that the crowd at La Prao intersection is considering going home. We are trying to get a confirmation on that, but it looks like they're getting up. Yes, but there's a lot of people, so if they're gonna disperse, it will take a while.
And on the Twitter scene, some of the participants have unconfirmed information that if they hear a firework, it means that you have to go home straight away. So this is unconfirmed reports. May I repeat that? So this is just what is happening on Twitter at the moment.
Okay, we got a reply from our correspondent. Kun Chatri said that the Lad Phrao intersection is not dispersing. They are still gathering there.
So of all the gatherings that are going on now, the one at Lad Phrao certainly is the biggest in size. You can see there could be thousands of people out there at the moment. Needless to say, I mean, the traffic in that area has come to a standstill. Lad Phrao is normally one of the busiest intersections in Bangkok.
You can stuck at that intersection for 2 hours on Friday night, or 3 hours. I have been there for 3 hours, 3 hours before.
And if you get stuck in the rain, this intersection would be very bad.
There is a report that the gathering at Taksin intersection is going to stop now. So right now, just let me update to you that we have the big gathering at Lad Phrao intersection. That's the biggest one. We have another one at Udom Suk BTS station, which is near Sukhumvit 103, Soi Sukhumvit 103. And we have the one at Wong Vien Yai. We also see, that's the live feed from Wong Vien Yai that we just got a report that people are going their way, going home or dispersing. Seems like they are leaving the site, some of them. And we also have a report that there is a gathering at Nonthaburi province coming up, and many other provinces around the country have some gathering that organized by university students.
Now we're seeing an ambulance arriving on the scene, but we don't know yet what it's for.
Okay, now we're going to have a live report from
Bang
Kun
Na.
Natha from Bang Na area.
สวัสดีค่ะคุณนัทธา
Yes, Kun Nat, Kun Thepchai, and Kun Chilip. Right now, I am at Bana intersection, and there is a rapid movement of protesters right here. They have stationed here at 4 p.m. at the Dong Suk intersection before moving to the Bana intersection right now. And opposite me is the Bana Drat Road and White. And that's how traffic is going on at the moment. But let's take a look at what the protesters are moving. And just right before I go on air, they just move to the left direction from Bana to Samut Prakan direction. But right now they are moving back. And I asked some people here, they just say they just don't want to station at the right spot for too long because they just want to protect themselves. And that is a kind of strategy of protesters tonight, that they want to just try to keep moving a little bit. And you can see the traffic right here. It's not, the car can still moving quite slowly at the Bang Na intersection right now, and it's very packed. You can see lots of protesters in different directions of the road, but the car still can be moving quite okay, but very slowly. As far as I can see, there is no police officer stationed right here, but we just passed by Tech Bang Na, and we see a group of riot police stationed over there, and I asked some of the protesters here, they just heard that there are some officers right here at the by Tech Bang Na. That's why they would like to just move a little bit. And we are not quite sure for how long they will stay here, but they have stationed here for 4 o'clock, and
Do you have any ideas what the plans are for the rest of the night for the protesters?
As far as we can see and what we heard from Telegraph is they will be here until 8 o'clock, but probably they will play it by ear because they are not sure what will be going on. And if you compare what's going on here at Lad Pao, it's a bit different because right here, protesters try to keep moving. And I just arrived, so I couldn't quite tell, but as far as I can see, they do not want to stand still or just don't want to stay put at a particular location. They just like to move along. So I'll try to keep you posted. I will just go along and see how it goes with some of the protesters.
As I understand that the Bang Na intersection, the protester at Bang Na intersection and the one at the Dom Suk BTS station are separated from each other, right?
So right now they have joined together because
Okay.
they first stationed at Udom Suk intersection, and right now they moved to Bang Na Rad intersection.
Okay.
So it means that they have been together at one particular spot right now.
Have you seen any of the protest leaders?
I just arrived, so I haven't seen any real leader yet, but as far as I can see, there are plenty of them stationed here at Bang Na Rad intersection area, and I asked passerby around this area, they said this group of protesters getting bigger and more crowded as time passes by.
All right. Okay, Kun Natha, thank you very much. Okay, so we are sorry for the grainy nature of the pictures because we all know that the internet connection from that spot is quite bad.
There's a lot of people together that mainly use internet as a communication tool. It's a kind of bad signal everywhere, also at the La Pao intersection too. But there's some people say that La Pao intersection, the protest, the gathering, the dispersing, but actually they are still gathering. Main two spots, one is under the BTS station and another one is at the Jatuchak Park.
All right. So our team at the scenes have just filed in a report that these protesters at Wong Vian Yai on the Thonburi side of the city have started dispersing now. So
You can see the protesters are moving right
Yeah.
now. Either they're going home or moving to other places.
There's a lot of crowd. If they really are dispersing, it's going to take a while.
So this is what the so-called flash mob looks like. They come, through the coordination on the social media, make their voices heard, and then leave immediately.
And if you just joined us, this is the live coverage of the protest in Bangkok. There are three main rally sites at La Pao intersection, Wong Vian Yai, and Udom Suk, Bang Na area. And the latest is Wong Vian Yai. The crowds are starting to disperse.
But all in all, they all said that they're going to stay until 8 p.m. only.
Okay.
So we're going to see them probably only another hour at most.
Okay.
So right now, what you see now is at La Pao intersection. That is a live feed
Okay.
from La Pao intersection, the biggest gathering today.
And the protesters, they are still holding out, despite the fact that they are promising to disperse at 8 p.m. too. I think all the timing of the rallies among the three locations have been well coordinated. I think the 8 p.m. certainly is the deadline that organizers at the three locations have put out, for the protesters to follow. So they have been gathering since around 3 p.m. So
Yes.
that means that they have been there at Lad Pao at least for the past 3-4 hours.
3-4 hours. That doesn't seem to budge. They're probably just going to stay there until at least 8 p.m. if there's nothing else happen. Which, like we report to you before, there is no sign of police officers today, which is something actually I would say, out of ordinary.
A bit unexpected as well,
Yes.
because when we think of protests, we would also see the police officers being deployed around the area, whether it was yesterday or previous protests, including what happened during September 19th rallies as well. We would see a group of police officers patrolling the area, but this is quite surprising because we don't see any of them here.
Okay. So it's not still unclear at this moment as to what will happen tomorrow. Of course, I mean, the message spread among the protesters is that they will come back tomorrow, but in what form or where, we still have to find out.
So right now in Nonthaburi, Karai intersection is blocked by the protesters already. There's a lot of people gathering there, I guess. So anyone near anywhere, just go to the gathering spot. And Nonthaburi is the latest one that popped up in Bangkok and vicinity. So any of you that heard before that the La Prao gathering is dispersing, I can confirm to you that they are still there. The crown is still there at La Prao intersection, but the one at Tak Sin intersection is already dispersing.
And it seems like at La Prao intersection, more and more people are joining this main protest site for today.
And we have received a report that the rally on the campus of Ramkhamhaeng University still continues under the leadership of Janupong Chatnok Mairayong, one of the key protest leaders. We're still not certain what will happen next on the campus. But as we all know, that Ramkhamhaeng has been the hotbed of student activism for years, or even decades. So it's no surprise that many of the students there have been taking this current political conflict very seriously.
Okay, so we got the report from Thai PBS correspondent that the police is about to make a press conference. So finally, we will hear something from them. And as soon as we know what it is, we'll let you know immediately. So what you see on the right is La Prao intersection, and what you see on the left
Wong Vien Yai.
is Wong Vien Yai. So you can see that the crowd on the left is getting smaller and smaller because they are already dispersing.
And it seems like the traffic is almost back to normal at
Yes.
Wong Vien Yai. You're seeing live pictures from both protest sites, Wong Vien Yai and Hayak La Prao, which you can see there are two different scenes going on at the moment. At La Prao intersection, you're seeing more and more people joining the protest site. But at Wong Vien Yai, the crowd's already dispersed and the traffic is almost back to normal.
So we got the report. There is a rumor that there are water truck and a police officer near La Prao intersection. But we can confirm to you by our Thai PBS correspondents that they don't see any police line around the La Prao intersection. What they see is only the traffic police. And they also cannot find the water truck near the La Prao intersection too.
Now we have a report from our team at Ramkhamhaeng University that Mai Rayong or Panupong Chatnak, whom you see on the screen right now, he has been in charge of the rally at Ramkhamhaeng, and the latest is that he told the crowd that they would start moving from Ramkhamhaeng University toward the Bang Na intersection, and from that point they would continue their journey to Lat Plau intersection. It's still unclear what their plan is and whether or not and how they're going to move there by walking or by any means of transportation.
That will be a very long walk from Ramkhamhaeng to Bang Na intersection. And we have a report from Bang Na intersection that protesters is trying to tell each other that they might gonna disperse soon, and they might go to different ways to Dom Suk and to Bering stations. So what you see now, what you just saw a little earlier was the video clip from Ram Kamhang earlier today, because right now it's already dark, like you can see. But right now, what you see on the screen is live coverage from Lat Prao intersection on the big screen. And we have the one at Udom Suk BTS station on the bottom right corner of the screen.
Okay.
So you can see what's going on right now in different spots in Bangkok.
And we do have something from the Udom Suk area, right?
It seems like the protest at Bang Na is still going on, and there have been scenes where people are going to continue with the protest, despite that there are a few rumors that they might disperse.
Okay. There have been some confusing reports about the intentions, the plans of the protesters at some of the locations, right? Because as we have been saying that there seems to be the absence of clear leadership on the part of the protesters tonight, so nobody seems to be speaking officially for any of the rally. So maybe some organizers have one message and another, could have a different message as to what the next step will be.
So, but that is also what foreign media said. It's a difficult part for the government to deal with this protest, because there is no one leader and they're not doing it for any political gain. They have a request for reform and changes, not a politician asking for something. So that's why a lot of academics around the world will say that this is the different one. This is the difficult one to deal with.
So you're watching the special edition of Thai PBS World with live coverage of the ongoing rallies at least 3 locations in the city, Lat Prao, in Udom Suk Bang Na, and earlier at Wong Vian Yai in Thonburi area, where the rally seemed to have already ended with most of the people leaving the area. So now we have 2 main locations where the rally is still going on. That is the Lat Prao intersection, which has the bigger crowd, and then that one, the other one at the Bang Na or Udom Suk areas.
And we also have a correspondent at Lat Prao intersection, Kun Chatri Suwan Walaigon, who reported earlier that the protests are still going on, as well as our news anchor Kun Natha Gomonwatin, who just reported from Bang Na area. And both have said that no police officers are seen at these protest sites. So it's quite unusual compared to the previous protests and demonstrations where police officers are deployed in all areas.
But there have been no words from the side of the authorities yet as
Yes.
to how they will deal with the situation tonight. And as we have been saying that legally speaking, these people are in violation of the state of emergency, which
Yes. bans
gathering of more than 4 people. And
5 people.
No more than 4 people.
4 people, okay.
It bans gathering of 5 people or more.
Oh, okay.
There has been an unofficial announcement where Thai PBS World could not independently identify, is that there's a graphic that claims to be from the Rasdon group saying that all protests must end by 8 p.m.
But in fact, that's a message that has been passed around among the protesters since this
Right.
evening.
Yes.
And that they would end the rally by 8 p.m.
All in all, there is a lot of rumors going around since yesterday. There is rumors of some firecrackers, which we cannot verify if there is anywhere. There's a rumor of rubber bullet that reported by some media, but we didn't see any. We cannot verify that as well. And there is a rumor that there was an ambulance that got blocked by police officer and people in the ambulance died. And we can verify that they didn't die. There was one woman in the ambulance. They finally got into the hospital, and she has been receiving treatment in the hospital. Her illness is totally separated from the protest event.
And with the 8 p.m. thingy, it has been widely shared on social media, but based on the official accounts of the United Front of Thammasat and demonstrations, we do not see that graphic. So we cannot be sure whether the 8 p.m. deadline is actually still there.
But what we can say is that the situation tonight, at least at the Lat Pral intersection where the biggest rally is taking place, the situation is much less tense than last night.
So right now we have a report that at Bang Na they already announced that they are going to stop the demonstration, and also at Wong Vien Yai that we reported to you earlier that they already stopped the demonstration, and the police finally going to make an announcement. They are about to have some press conference, which will be the first time we hear after they have the gathering today.
So there's only.
So now
right
there's a live feed from the police press conference. Let's see what they have to say.
ครับเรียนพี่น้องสื่อมวลชนทุกท่านครับก็ขออนุญาตนำเรียนข้อมูลเกี่ยวกับด้านสภาพการจราจรอันเนื่องมาจากกรณีของการมีกลุ่มชุมนุมนะครับในประการแรกครับเรื่องการปิดการจราจรณขณะนี้ครับกลุ่มผู้ชุมนุมเองมีการไปชุมนุม5จุดด้วยกันครับจุดแรกก็จะเป็นที่5แยกลาดพร้าว
Okay, he started off by trying to give us the reports on the traffic conditions, referring to the 5 locations that the protesters have been occupying in the past few hours.
แต่ในขณะนี้ครับที่มีกระทบกับพื้นผิวการจราจรมี3จุดครับจุดแรกก็จะเป็นที่5แยกลาดพร้าว5แยกลาดพร้าวนั้นกระทบพื้นผิวการจราจรเนื่องจากว่ากลุ่มผู้ชุมนุมนั้นอยู่
So
บริ
he
เวณ
stated
5แย
that
ก
the protest has affected 3 locations. One of them is Hayak Lat Pral or the Lat Pral intersection.
นะครับถนนผลโยธินขาออกเราปิดตั้งแต่แยกกำแพงเพชรครับแยกกำแพงเพชรมุ่งหน้า5แยกลาดพร้าวนั้นไม่ได้นะครับเพราะฉะนั้นเมื่อกำแพงเพชรก็จะต้องซ้ายไปนะครับแล้วก็ไปใช้กำแพงเพชร2
In fact, we were expecting them to talk about how they would deal with the rallies, but instead he started off by talking about traffic conditions.
Yes.
So the traffic has been affected by the protest, so he's actually giving a wrap up to what it is.
Okay. So anyway, stay with us. We wait until he comes to that more important point about the situation at the rally site.
And on other screens, you can see that we have live feed from different protest sites all together. Were the one from Lat Pral intersection, the one you see on above left corner.
So in short, if you can avoid areas around Lat Pral, so do it. You are not advised to come near that spot.
Unless you want to join the protest.
ดอนเมืองมุ่งหน้าดินแดงใช้สะพานข้ามแยกยังได้ปกติครับในส่วนของวิภาวดีขาออกครับเมื่อไปถึง5แยกลาดพร้าว
Still on the traffic report on Vipavadi Road. So I think this traffic report going to be a little while because he is still talking about the first spot, which is the Lat Pral intersection.
And while the policeman makes the announcement, we will give you translation time by time. So bear with us.
สภาพการจราจรของ5แยกลาดพร้าวแยกที่2ครับก็คือตรงที่สถานีรถไฟฟ้าวงเวียนใหญ่
So now they're talking about วงเวียนใหญ่
นะครับณขณะนี้เนี่ยกลุ่มผู้ชุมนุมก็จะอยู่
ใน
ส่วนของถนนสมเด็จพระปิ่นเกล้าขาออกเป็นหลักนะครับขาออกเป็นหลักที่เราต้องทำการปิดการจราจรก็คือว่าในส่วนของณขณะนี้จากวงเวียนใหญ่มุ่งหน้าแยกตักสินไม่ได้เพราะฉะนั้น
So they talk about the outbound from Wong Vien Yai to Tak Sin intersection has been closed. Only the outbound side.
No, but according to our own report, I mean, the protesters at Wong Vien Yai have already dispersed and the traffic should be returning to normal by this time now.
So if you just tune in, this is the live cover from the police briefing from La Prao intersection on the upper left, upper right also La Prao intersection, and the bottom right is at Udom Suk BTS station.
แต่เลี้ยวซ้ายไปแยกหมายสวรรค์ยังใช้การได้ตามปกติสำหรับฝั่งในส่วนของถนนราชพฤกษ์ข้ามสะพานข้ามแยกไปสะพานสาทรก็ใช้ได้ตามปกติครับแต่เลี้ยวซ้ายเข้าวงเวียนใหญ่ไม่ได้
We wait for him until he gets to the more important point.
สถานีรถไฟฟ้าวงเวียนใหญ่สภาพการจราจรก็เป็นเช่นนี้นะครับแต่อย่างไรก็ตามสถานการณ์ณขณะนี้ก็มีกลุ่มผู้ชุมนุมส่วนหนึ่งกำลังเคลื่อนที่ไปที่วงเวียนใหญ่แต่วงเวียนใหญ่ภายในวงเวียนใหญ่ณขณะนี้การจราจรยังเปิดเป็นปกตินะครับจุดที่3ครับคือที่แยกบางนาเนื่องจากว่ากลุ่มผู้ชุมนุมได้เคลื่อนตัวจากสถานีรถไฟฟ้าอุดมสุขไปที่แยกบางนาในส่วนของแยกบางนานั้นนะครับสุขุมวิทขาออกนะครับกลุ่มผู้ชุมนุมจะอยู่ที่สุขุมวิทขาออกเป็นหลักนะครับขาออกเป็นหลัก
They're talking about most of the protesters will stay on Sukhumvit Road on outbound side. Bang Na intersection, they divided into two groups. The one in Bang Na intersection and the one at Udom Suk BTS station.
เพราะฉะนั้นท่านที่เดินทางมากรณีที่จากสุขุมวิทจากพระโขนงมาถึงอุดมสุขนั้นตรงไปไม่ได้ครับสุขุมวิทขาออกตรงไปไม่ได้ต้อง
So the outbound is completely blocked. So you have to do the detour.
หลังจากอุดมสุขจะไปแยกบางนาก็ไปได้ครับแล้วซ้ายไปตามถนนบางนาตราดหรือถนนเทพรัตน์
So those are the three spots that the police said that the traffic has been affected by the protest. La Prao intersection, Tak Sin Wong Vien Yai, and at Udom Suk Bang Na.
And those are the three main protest sites for today. But there have been reports that Bang Na and Wong Vien Yai the crowds have already dispersed.
And right now, we got a report that there is another pop-up protest in Nonthaburi province. And the one in Ramkhamhaeng reportedly trying to move toward Bang Na area. We have no idea how that's going to work, whether they're going to be on foot or some other means of traveling, but other means of transport. But that's that's the report we got.
ต่อมาก็อาจจะเกิดความไม่สะดวกก็เลยปิดทั้งทุกสถานีแล้วก็ในส่วนของระบบไฟฟ้าใต้ดินรถไฟฟ้าใต้ดินนะครับก็สายสีน้ำเงินเท่านั้นครับที่ปิดสายสีม่วงยังใช้การได้ตามปกติทั้งนี้ทั้งนั้นอย่างไรก็ตามไม่ว่าจะเป็นการปิดการจราจรไม่ว่าจะเป็นการใช้ระบบ
He claimed that the blue line has been suspended.
ที่คลายจากปัญหาของกลุ่มผู้ชุมนุมเมื่อไรก็ตามบทความจำเป็นในการที่ดูแลความปลอดภัยให้กับพี่น้องประชาชนหรือเราเคลียร์เส้นทางได้จะเปิดให้พี่น้องประชาชนได้ใช้โดยเร็วที่สุดประการต่อมาครับประการที่3ท่านใดนะครับสงสัยหรือต้องการสอบถามข้อมูลอัปเดตเรื่องสภาพการจราจรก็โทรได้ที่1197ตลอด24ชั่วโมงครับในส่วนของการด้านการจราจรนครบาลก็ขอนำเรียนให้
We have no idea how the police arrange their priorities in giving the press conference.
Obviously, the traffic first.
So they believe that traffic is the biggest issue at the moment. So that's why they spend almost 10 minutes now talking about traffic conditions. Yeah.
And it seems like the police gave some contradicting information. He mentioned about the MRT, stating that only the blue line is suspended, but
เข้าไปในผิวจราจรการรวมการชุมนุมการเมืองเป็นความผิดตามพระราชกำหนดการปฏิบัติการในสถานการณ์ฉุกเฉิน
Alright, he is repeating the same old warning that the rallies are in violation of the state of emergency.
เป็นความผิดนะครับตำรวจจำเป็นต้องดำเนินการตามกฎหมายนะครับ
You said the police have to
option
enforce
but
the
to
law.
to deal with them legally. But he doesn't say exactly what will happen next.
สังคมออนไลน์อยู่มากนะครับซึ่งเรื่องนี้นอกจากเป็นการทำผิดตามพระราชกำหนดแล้วนะครับยังเป็นการความผิดตามพระราชบัญญัติคอมพิวเตอร์ด้วยนะครับซึ่งตรงนี้มันจะเป็นการทำให้สังคมเนี่ยเกิดความสับสนวุ่น
So
วาย
he said beside this is a violation of the state of emergency. It is also a violation of the computer law because it creates confusion and fears among public by social media.
ครับสวัสดีครับพี่น้องสื่อมวลชนนะครับสำหรับการส่งต่อข้อมูลที่บิดเบือนนะครับหรือข่าวปลอมนะครับหรือ
He's talking about the spread of fake news and misleading information.
ก็มีอยู่โดยตลอดนะครับโดยมีกลุ่มผู้กระทำนะครับผมจะขอยกตัวอย่างเฟกนิวส์ที่เกี่ยวข้องนะครับในช่วงนี้นะครับอย่างแรกเลยนะครับมีการใช้ภาพนะครับเยาวชนคุกเข่า
He's now showing examples of how the fake news have been circulated.
So these pictures have been circulated since this morning. It was initially purported to be a picture taken from the scenes of the crackdown yesterday with some of the young protesters having their hands bowed behind their back. In fact, the picture was taken from a scene during the pro-democracy protest in Hong Kong, not in Thailand. So this is a point that this police officer is trying to clarify.
So we got the report that the protester from Bang Na intersection right now is mobilizing to Udom Suk BTS station. So they're gonna group together.
ยืนยันก่อนนะครับอันนี้โพสต์ที่1นะครับข่าวปลอมมันแรกนะครับ
There is information that the protest leaders trying to tell people to go home, but of course there's a lot of people that refuse to leave the protest site.
And now the policemen are showing another piece of fake news that has been circulating on social media related to the
ทางสื่อ
protests.
โซเชียลมีเดียต่างๆทุกแพลตฟอร์มข้อมูลการโทรศัพท์นะครับมีการดักฟังนอกจากนั้นเนี่ยการโพสต์การส่งต่อข้อความที่เกี่ยวข้องกับการชุมนุมเจ้าหน้าที่จะจับกุมโดยไม่มีหมายจับ
So there has been the rumor on the social media that the police and other authorities will crack down on the transmission of information that is seen as being harmful to national security or even eavesdrop on the telephones and monitor the social media activities. So this is completely fake because the police have no plans or the intention to monitor what is said on the social media, on the person, at least on the personal accounts of social media users.
ภาพนี้นะครับคนไข้เนี่ยเป็นผู้สูงอายุนะครับแล้วก็โทรเรียกรถพยาบาล
So that he was talking about the ambulance incident that we were reporting you earlier, that there was a rumor that it's a mother and a child and passed away in the car because the ambulance was blocked, but that actually not a real incident that happened. The real incident is an old woman was in the ambulance. Of course, the ambulance were blocked a couple times, but finally she got to a police hospital and she is being treated at the hospital right now.
ให้เกิดผลกระทบต่อความมั่นคงของรัฐนะครับอันนี้โทษนะครับจำคุกไม่เกิน2 ปีปรับไม่เกิน 40,000 บาทนะครับอีกอันนึงเนี่ยจะผิดพรบวินเตอร์มาตรา 14 อนุ 3 ในเรื่อง
So the police basically talking about what kind of charges the protester might violate, what laws that the possibility that the protester might violate, like the computer law, the state of emergency, mostly the national security. And he said that what will be the maximum sentence of each charge.
And notably, the Computer Crime Act, they can face up to 2 years in jail or be fined up to 40,000 baht. If you spread fake news, it might fall under that law.
อันเซ็นนะครับหรือว่ากระบวนการส่งก็คือลบทิ้งไปนะครับก็จะช่วยไม่ให้ ข่าวปลอมเหล่านี้นะครับฟุ้งกระจายอยู่ในสื่อสังคมออนไลน์ซึ่งมันจะทำให้เกิด
And previously, you also mentioned that spreading fake news can also affect the national security.
Of course, we have to admit that a lot of fake news had been circulating around on the social media in the past few days, past few weeks, in fact.
Fourth portion of the press briefing. Now they're going to talk about communication to the foreigners.
การแถลงข่าวอย่างเป็นทางการวันนี้ก็คงจะจบลงแค่นี้นะครับแต่ว่า
Oh, and that's the end of the press briefing.
ไปหรือว่ามีเหตุอะไรเร่งด่วนที่ต้องแจ้งพี่น้องสื่อมวลชนนะครับเดี๋ยวท่านรองโฆษกท่านพลเอกกฤษณะเจริญนะครับกับทีมงานโฆษกนะครับก็จะมาร่วมแถลงข่าวให้กับพี่น้องประชาชนได้ทราบความก้าวหน้านะครับเดี๋ยวเชิญท่านรองโฆษกแจ้งครับ
Okay. So he said that that portion is ended, but there is another issue, another topic of the press briefing coming up.
สวัสดีครับ Just to bring you the latest of today public gathering in Bangkok area from the Joint Operations Command for resolving severe emergency situations. As of now, there are still public gatherings at several places, including Lat Phrao intersection, King Thaksin the Great Monument Roundabout, Domestic BTS Station, Rangkampang University, and also Samyang Midtown area. As a result of such gatherings, roads towards and nearby Lat Phrao intersection, the King Thaksin the Great Monument Roundabout, and Bang Lat intersection are still closed. All BTS and Blue Line MRT services are still closed as well, so please avoid using these fixed areas and also these public transportation services. And for more traffic update, please contact our call center at 1197. And once again, I wish to remind that the such public gatherings are in violation of the law as 5 persons or more have gathered illegally. And also it appears that there are many fake news on social media platforms such as police would intercept information and arrest social media users without any arrest warrants. And also a picture of teenagers kneeling down, facing a wall, tied by a rope, similar to the police arrest, which is in fact an incident happened in Hong Kong in 2019. We wish to remind that dissemination of such fake news are in violation of the declaration with an imprisonment of less than 2 years and fine not exceeding 40,000 baht. Is also against Agriculture Crime Act, carrying maximum imprisonment period for 2 years or fine not exceeding 100,000 baht. That's all for now. We bring you the latest to all of you in due course when the situation develops. Thank you very much.
So this was a translation of what the two other police officers said earlier: traffic and then the
Mean of transportation.
The refuting of the fake news about how the protesters were arrested and having their hand bound behind their backs.
And if you've been listening to the police statement from the very beginning, and those of you who may have been receiving information, you may notice some contradictions between the police statement and other reports. For example, the police mentioned that the gatherings are still there around 5 areas, but according to recent reports, some of them have left. For example, at Wong Wien Yai and around Bang Na.
So we got
โดยใช้สมดุลระหว่างกฎหมายครับแล้วก็ความปลอดภัยผู้ชุมนุมแล้วก็กับการเจรจาด้วยนะครับ ก็หลายจุดแจ้งยุตินะครับซึ่งก็ต้องขอบคุณนะครับตำรวจอยากจะใช้มาตรการเข้มข้นตามกฎหมายแต่ว่าต้องคำนึงด้วยว่าประชาชนที่ไม่เกี่ยวข้องหรือว่าที่อาจจะเกี่ยวข้องจะปลอดภัยหรือไม่นะครับแล้วก็ต้องให้มันเกิดความสมดุลในขณะที่ก็มีการเจรจาเพื่อขอร้องควบคู่กันด้วยครับ
So the police said that there have been negotiations with the protesters and they tried to deal with it according to standard. Anyway, we got the report that the gathering at Lat Phrao intersection, it has been told that they are going to stop the gathering. And people starting to leaving the intersection, leaving the protest site.
In fact, the most important point about on the press conference came toward the end in answer to a question by, I suppose, a reporter asking about how the police are planning to deal with the ongoing protests. And the answer from the police officer is that the police is good news that most of the rallies have already dispersed. But even though the police certainly want to enforce the law strictly, but the police understand the difficulties and are concerned about public safety. So the best course of action, according to him, is to negotiate and to talk with the protesters so that there would not be any more confrontation.
And it looks like the protest site at La Prao intersection, you're seeing the crowds are starting to disperse.
And the one on the bottom left is actually in Nonthaburi province at Karai intersection. That's the one that just popped, the latest one that popped up in the vicinity of Bangkok.
So what we have been seeing are so-called flash mobs springing up on various locations in and around Bangkok. This kind of flash mob certainly was something unprecedented, because in the past when we had political rallies, it would be concentrated at one location only. But this time around, I mean, we are witnessing certainly a new phenomenon.
Yes.
So it's quite obvious that the people at Lat Plau are breaking up, heading home, and according to the rally organizers, these people are expected to come back tomorrow.
And the good news is the protests remain peaceful. And what you're seeing right now, this is the live footage. And right now you're seeing live footage from the MRT Phra Nang Klao at Nonthaburi province. This is where the protests are going on at the moment.
Seem very active.
Okay, see, one of the rallies that pop up later in this evening.
Seem most active right now, though.
The message that has been repeated at all the rally sites is that Prayut must resign and release our friends, in reference to more than a dozen of key activists who are still in police custody. And on the political side, there are attempts by some politicians for the House Speaker, Kun Cholik Pai, to call an extraordinary House session to debate the aftermath of the violent crackdown last night. And pushing for this extraordinary House session is Kun Pitha Limcharanrat, leader of the Khao Klai Party, one of the major opposition parties in the House. He said the situation has become so critical that the House of Representatives should have a role to discuss a way out for the country.
Pitha was reportedly at one of the protest sites last night too.
That's right. Yeah.
He was photographed by journalists.
So of all the political parties, the Khao Klai is certainly seen as being more supportive of these anti-government activities. And Pitha and the people in his party have made no secret of their admiration for these young people who have been leading the anti-government activities.
And not just the Khao Klai Party, which is a reincarnation of the defunct Future For Party that has been very supportive of the protests, but also the Cana Khao Na, the members have always shown the support and has always condemned the violence from the police officers against the protesters.
So as you can see that the cloud at the Lat Plau intersection splitting, splitting up and heading home. And so we can assume that the rally there is over. We still don't know yet if the protester will come back again for another round of rally where the destination will be. Because the three main locations chosen for today's rallies were chosen quite spontaneously.
It's almost like last minute. They have been saying in the afternoon that there will be various locations and anyone close to anywhere just go there. At first, the Thammasat faction was saying that at every BTS station, people can just go gather there. And that is part of the reason why that the BTS starting to considering close the service and eventually closed some part of the service.
So the social media have become a very important instrument of communications for the protest organizers. One way to evade official monitoring.
There was a report that Bang Na intersection and Udom Suk that people were told to go home, but the Thai PBS correspondent said that people are still there. People still gather at the Bang Na area.
And we have our news anchor, Kunatha Komnatin, still holding out at the Bang Na intersection. She's going to find her report. So, Kunatha, what's the latest?
Yes, Kun Chai Kunat and Kun Tulip. I am now at Bang Na intersection on right now at the Bang Na intersection. People still grouping, protesters are still here, right in the middle of the intersection. And the strategy for tonight, we try to keep moving a little bit from this spot to the next spot, but in the not far away from each spot. The tactic is to tell each other to keep moving so that the police officer cannot catch them. But as far as I am here for about 20 minutes, I haven't seen police officers here yet, but there is a police station, a small one over here at the intersection. And now I'd like you to take a look at this tour of the just looking in the middle of the road. And you can
Are
see
still there, which is contradicting with the previous reports that Bang Na is supposed to disperse already. So what you're seeing right now.
We're there and try to move them.
Yeah, we apologize for the poor connection. So we will try to get back to Kunatha again when we get a better connection. So, but as you can see, the people have started moving, and
It seems like the protesters are still there, though.
Yes.
But
Even though we
which
got the report that they were told to go home, but there's a lot of people there. And also at Nonthaburi, we have our correspondents at Nonthaburi area. It reportedly a lot of people there, and like we saw in the live feed earlier that there were a stage set up and there was some people talking on the street, and it looked very, very active. And it's the latest one that popped up in the vicinity of Bangkok.
okay, I mean, at least we can heave a big sign of belief that everything has been going well.
Yes.
And the police, it's quite clear that have adopted a new tactic too, by keeping a good distance from all the rally sites. So as Kunatha reported, even at Bang Na, even though the location of the rally is very close to a police station, but there seem to be no signs of police personnel wanting to be moving close to the rally site.
And what you see now is the La Prao intersection that you can see that it's so different from only an hour ago, because right now a lot of people are starting to go home already.
All right, so we're trying to reconnect with Kunatha Komnatin again.
So, Kunatha, can you hear us?
Kunatha is in Bang Na area where there is also a big protest.
Okay, let's try again. Kunatha.
Yes, I can hear you, the three of you, but I'm not sure whether the signal is good. But as far as see the protesters who moving along at the road in the middle of intersection. Right now, they are moving along to the Sumatra direction. I'll try to get a clear view to see what's the image right here, what's happened at this very junction at Bangna intersection. People have just moving, they are moving from this spot right there, and they just go over to that direction, which is Sumatra province. I asked some of them why they have been moving. They just told me that they believe it's the way to protect themselves from police officers if they try to come and disperse the gathering right now. But they will be able to talk this way. So probably it's been that tactic to try to keep moving. I've been here for half an hour and I talked to some of the protesters. Some of them are professional, young professional. They are not university students. They like to show moral support to young people, especially after the image they saw last night at Brahma 1 when the police officer dispersed the protester. They felt that they are quite uneasy and they have to join forces with other people. That's the mission that they come out to do as well. So as you see, right now it's about 7:30 and people are still here, quite active and we have at Bangna station. And as far as I can see, there is no police officer or right of police in nearby area at all. But on the way, I passed Tech Bangna, and when I took a look inside, I saw a group of right of police stationed over there. A few police officers are.
So, Kunatha, what is their plans for tomorrow? Are they coming back to the same spot?
We are not sure yet in terms of location, but as far as we know, is the one of the main locations that we group tonight. And they do not disclose the information. They have arranged to meet by Telegram. You can see behind me, people have already here. When I just arrived 5 minutes ago, it was quite packed.
Okay.
So probably it's time for them to keep moving along and they get ready to go home before 8 o'clock.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you so
thank you,
much,
Natasha.
Kunatha. So
Okay.
stay safe.
All right. So that's the latest. It looks like the people at the major rally sites have started already some locations have already left the scenes and
Yes.
some are starting to do so, right?
So the La Plata section where was the biggest gathering tonight, they already dispersed, people going home, as well as the one at Wong Vien Yai and Tak Sin section across the bridge, across the Chao Phraya River, they already also dispersed and going home. But we still see that the one in Bangna is still ongoing, also the one at Nonthaburi province, and we got a report that the one in Nonthaburi probably will stay until 10 p.m. because they are not in the area that declare as severely state of emergency like in Bangkok.
All right. So, all right. So the good news is that nothing serious happened and no untoward incidents took place. And okay, we can go home and have sound sleep.
Definitely. So the good news is that everything is peaceful, and that is all it really matters.
All right. So
And that wraps up tonight's edition of Thai PBS World. Thank you very much for watching. And if there are any more developments, we will get back to you. So thank you again and good night.
good night.